Hey, what's up? This is Christopher Stolle of Realm of the Mist Entertainment. The podcast you are listening to is part of the SJ Network. Go to s-j-network.com. That's s-j-network.com for more great podcasts and information on those shows, as well as information and ability to contact publicist Steve Joyner for more information. Just go to the website and check out the family. Ladies and gentlemen, until then, enjoy the show.
Hey Henry, how do you keep a nitwit in suspense?
I don't know. How?
I'll tell you after the show.
Great, looking forward to it. Hey wait, what are you, a comedian?
No, but we have some very funny interviews at the Sherpa Chalet this week. Today we hear from Jeff Dwoskin. He's funnier than the Sherpa.
Just like everything else in the universe.
Attention, rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is being brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, throwing water balloons, or people, off the cliffs is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hey there, Rebels, and welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts and more. It's me, Jim, the podcast Sherpa. How you doing? And this is our season 4 finale week, and it's a theme week.
It's theme week. It's theme week. It's theme week.
And that theme would be, what are you, a comedian? Why are we calling it that? Because we have 3 very funny men on this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Plus, on Halloween, we've got a special Halloween surprise. But back to this week. Comedy, of course, is the theme this week, and what better way to start it off with a stand-up comic? He's a guy named Jeff Dwoskin, and we had so much fun talking. This is definitely a TML week on my part, meaning too much laughing. But I think if you were me, you would probably be laughing a lot too. So if you don't like my laugh, because I know at the end I sound like I'm having an asthmatic attack when I go, but I try and edit those out for you so you don't have to hear it too often. But anyway, back to today's guest. He is the host of the Jeff Dwoskin Show, and it's very funny. And he gets to talk to all sorts of people and be very funny in the meantime. And I guess I should probably explain something when I do the intro for Jeff. We did our video meeting by Zoom, and I wasn't sure where he was location-wise. And I said, "Are you in Michigan?" And he said, "Yeah, I am." And then I realized that the Detroit Tigers hat and the Michigan State T-shirt that he was wearing were probably dead giveaways. And he, of course, responded that my detective skills were impeccable. So that's what that whole Pride of Michigan thing is all about. So just in case you were wondering about that. We had so much fun talking. And like I said, a lot of laughing. He's a great guy. I encourage you to check out his podcast. Super nice guy. Massive following on Twitter. And if you follow him on Twitter, I'm sure you will be easily amused. He's a really great guy. And I've carried on long enough. So let's move on to my interview with Jeff Dwoskin of the Jeff Dwoskin Show. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the comedy room at the Sherpa Chalet. My guest today is, he refers to himself as a recovering comedian. He is the host of the Jeff Dwoskin Show. He's got massive amounts of followers on Twitter, and he's also been a blogger for the Huffington Post as well. Quite the literate man. The pride of Michigan, because he's got the Tigers hat and the Michigan State jersey, but you can't see that, but take my word for it. Jeff, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Jim?
Very good.
Good to be here. So excited to be here. It's good to be here.
How does it feel to be the pride of Michigan?
It's good. I'm just going on 3 years running now, and it's a lot to put on my shoulders, but someone's got to do it, and Michigan's worth it. Go Michigan. Go Michigan.
It's a hard title to give up, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, One day I'll look back and I'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been 10 years since I was the pride of Michigan. But those were good times. Those were good times. Yeah. So,
were you born and raised there?
I was born and raised in Michigan. Pretty much the same 5 square miles, other than college.
That's your comfort zone, though. There's nothing wrong with that, Jeff.
Yeah, Michigan's good. I like it. We got seasons. Seasons, for those that don't have seasons, are when there's snow. Sometimes there's snow. It's sometimes it's fall and spring. And there's another one.
Okay.
Summer? Did I say summer?
All right. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm a comedian. I am kind of a social media guy, and I love doing all those. And I kind of put it all together into a little podcast. And I love entertainment, but specifically, like, I've always had like this. I love going to like Comic-Cons and meeting all the B and C level celebrities, like, oh, look, it's Eric Estrada. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't he in something in the 70s? Yeah, he was. He's awesome. So like, I love doing that. And so I have combined all 3 of those passions into my podcast. I've been a stand-up comedian for 18 years, but, sort of everyone got retired out of that. So it's coming back a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to go back into the clubs. I'm not ready to go back, with all the COVID. But I kind of parlayed that into a podcast. So I get to be funny on a podcast, have some guests on, be funny with them. And I'm going to be funny with you on your show, I hope. It's just, I love to kind of talk about things that interest me. And that's what the show is all about. But, so that's it. I'm wearing the Michigan State shirt because that's where half my money goes. My daughter goes there, and the other half goes to U of M. And
as long as you support the school and they support your wardrobe, then it's a pretty fair balance, right?
Yeah. We have a split house, so it's exciting. It's exciting day to day to be in as the pride of Michigan. I couldn't pick one school. I had to send them one to each. So.
So, who at these Comic-Cons has made you the most starstruck?
I think Henry Winkler is the Fonz is the one, because like growing up, the Fonz was like the coolest guy in the world, right? And he's a little more than just when you see someone who's famous, like the Fonz was like this icon you watch for years and years and years. And when I first met Henry Winkler and I'm standing there, who was, by the way, the nicest person in the world.
I've heard that.
I couldn't get over the fact that I was standing with the Fonz, and it was like, and I just shut down. It's just like, I could barely even like anything. And it was just like, but he was so cool. And, I got a picture with him, and, I got a autograph, and the autograph says Jeff is cool, which kind of cements me as cool, because if Fonz tells you you're cool, that's pretty much all you need. I mean, that's pretty much, that you can't get a better authority than the Fonz on cool. I mean, my wife disagrees, everyone, but like, whatever. I'm like, hey, I got it right here in writing on a picture of the Fonz, signed by the Fonz. So,
So you were the first guest that I've had that has been certified cool.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's one of the prerequisites to be the pride of Michigan. You have to be certified cool.
That's right. You check that box very easily. You just held up the picture, and that was it. They said, "Okay, you've got a lock on it."
Exactly. But there was a lot of them. It's just fun to meet. It's fun to meet them. And then some, it's like, when you talk to them, it's fun to, they all have like some stories that they always tell, but it's fun to kind of, you can get them really to open up if you start talking to them about other stories, or just treat them as human too. Like I met the guy who plays Zach from Saved by the Bell. So I could see that, like, while he was in line, this is even pre-COVID, shaking hands. That's how you move disease, right? You shake hands, you touch your face, your nose. And I could tell he was very sensitive to it. He would shake everyone's hand, but then he was purulent, right? So when I went up to him, I just fist bumped him. And he knew that I was doing that for the reason, you know what I mean? And so we ended up talking for like a few minutes. It was just like, otherwise he would have just, oh, dude, man, thank you for that. That was so cool of you, And I get the whole background. He's like talking to me. So it's stuff like that. It's just cool to see if you can get them to spend a minute with you, because they're just trying to crank out that money. They're like $60 or whatever. Let me sign. What's your name? Okay, hang on. All right, here you go. Thank you. You want a photo? That's another $40. Horrible.
So, you being it before you were a comic, who were some of your comic influences growing up?
Oh, I loved Rodney Dangerfield, and I listened to Joan Rivers a lot because my parents listened to Joan Rivers a lot, and I actually listened to Bill Cosby a lot. Not a popular answer now, but
back then it worked.
Since we're going back decades, I mean, I think it's fair to say. I think it was pre-issue. In my teen years, I was like Saturday Night Live, Dennis Miller now, the overtly political one. So he was big, and then Bill Burr now. Jim Jeffries is awesome. There's a lot of really funny folks out there. Was there any particular comedian or maybe an instance in your life that made you decide that you wanted to do stand-up? I think I remember being at a comedy club, Mark Ridley's Comedy Club in Royal Oak, and seeing The Amazing Jonathan. And The Amazing Jonathan he did like this funny magic. He wasn't he was a magician, but he wasn't really a magician. You may have seen him. He had specials and all that kind of stuff. And he did all that crazy stuff, the real kind of geek magic. And I think it was it made me kind of think, oh, this is really cool. This is, it'd be years before I did anything about it. But that always kind of stuck in my head as the moment where I thought, I think I want to do. It would be fun to make people laugh. It would be a good time.
Sure. And how would you describe your type of comedy?
Dry, sarcastic. I like to think of it as sharp and witty. So that's a direct quote from my mom. Witty. So. I'm pulling in all the references, the Fonz, my mom, so it's like.
But this is what keeps you as, Michigan's favorite son.
Exactly, it's the Michigan gym. But yeah. So comedy was really great. It's like one of those drugs where once you start to do it, it's like a drug, you can't stop doing it. And, I would do it. And early on, I got to work with people like Bobby Collins and Kevin Pollak and George Wallace. I was part of this organization that had these big comedy nights. One of the cool things about being a comedian, which I think is different than the other thing, is you don't have to be a comedian for a very long time to work with very famous people. It's because these people come to town and they're like, we just need an MC. Grab that guy. And it was he'll do it for $1? Great. You know what I mean? And so it's so you all of a sudden you're there and you're working with Kevin Pollak, or, that's the guy from, you guys all know, Miss Maisel.
Yeah, Mrs. Maisel, sure.
Yeah, and Usual Suspects and A Few Good Men. And, all that kind of stuff. So, all of a sudden you're working with these famous people, and it's cool. And it's oh, I got all these cool pictures. And then all your friends think you're cool because, you post that on Facebook. It's oh, look, So that was, so that's one of the interesting things I think about, I think when you're an actor and you're starting off with small things, you're all independents, one of you may break out eventually, but comedy, you can be working with famous people right away.
Sure.
Because you're cheap. They want cheap people. They want all the money for themselves, which is good, but
that's right.
Good for both.
So
it's win-win.
A while back, I was talking with a comic named Mike Kaplan, and I was asking him what was his best gig and what was his worst gig. Do you have any memories on either one of those?
I do.
Can you share it, or do we have to listen to your podcast to find out?
No. It's. I think it's hard to. I think most comedians will remember the bad shows more than they will the good shows. Because, so I'm doing this show, and I'm Jewish, and I was asked to do this Jewish event in Canada. I'm in Michigan, but Canada for the rest of the country. To Michigan, Canada's like just walking next door. It's like right there, right? Well, especially where I live in the Detroit area. So I go and do this thing, and it's this huge gymnasium. It's huge, and I'm looking at the signs, for the event, and nothing says comedian. Nothing says there's a comedian. Nothing. And that's, to me, is a bad sign. It's a bad sign. If you don't know what's coming, it's a bad sign, right? And so they have like a jazz band go, and then they have like the CEO of the charity go up, and he's supposed to do like a 3 to 5 minute speech, and it's like 15 minutes into it, he finally finishes or something, and then they go, and now Jeff Dwoskin, and they still don't even mention I'm a comedian, right? So now you're in this long room. And I'm on a stage, so I'm like 15 feet above, is my head, I remember, 10, 15 feet up, and everyone's in the back of the room, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And it went south immediately. Immediately. It was just bad. And my wife happened to be there with me. And so I had a witness. So I was like, a lot of times, like, you'll retreat, especially early on, which this was early on in my career. And it's easy to retreat, and you kind of throw in the towel. But I decided, no, I keep going. I like amp it up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing this. I'm not failing. And I keep going, and just nothing. I think I'm supposed to do, I don't know, let's say 30 minutes. 20 minutes in, the lights go on. But I'm not quitting. I look at my watch. I'm like, I haven't done my time. I'm doing my time. I get paid for my time, right? And so I go. Next thing I know, the woman's on stage holding the bowl in her arms, going and giving me the little hand wave to like finish it up. I'm not finishing up. I was paid. I'm good for 30. I'm keeping going. Next thing you know, she gives me one of these. Like, she claps me off, right? So the whole time I'm up there, all I can think of, one of the things when you're a comedian that you get really good at is when you're performing anything, you have a whole different thing going on in your brain, right? You're thinking about you're saying the joke, but you're talking to yourself in your brain, and you're prepping the next joke, and you're like, you can have an entire conversation. You can have two things going on. And so, but while this is happening, I'm thinking to myself, how the hell do I get out of here? Like, I'm thinking, thank God I already got paid, and I'm trying to find the shortest distance between me and the exit. And so I get out of there as fast as possible. It was painful. It was so painful. And then I think I might have given some of the money back, like, because the guy who booked me, like, Jeff, what happened? And I'm like, oh my God, it was so horrible. For his sake, I didn't even want to. That was the worst. I mean, like, when you're a comedian and you're not getting laughs, I mean, that's bad, and it's torture, and if you can't win them back. And I was probably too young in my career to know how to turn it around. It was probably really early on. And so it was just like, it was the worst. The best shows are just the opposite. It's like where you're doing it and they're just with you and they laugh at everything. The pre-setup, the setup, and like those shows, you get like those gold shows, but like if you do 100, you can have 80 great shows, but like those ones that are like amazing where like you breathe and they laugh, it's like, that's like a small percent, but like you cherish those, but, and then it gets ruined when you do the second show and you're trying to imitate the same thing. And it just doesn't happen because it's a different crowd. They react completely different. And plus in your head, you're chasing a feeling and that never works. And so thank you. I think I need a Xanax now. I remember doing a gig the next week and I had to drive by the place that I did the bad gig at to get to the other place. and having a panic attack just driving by it. like I'm thinking like, what am I, God, what if these people are at the club that I'm heading to? I was like so nervous.
But fortunately, you were okay when you got there.
Yeah, it all worked out, and that just, it's just a bad memory. But it's like, here's the funny thing about comedy. It's like it's those bad shows that kind of sculpt you, right? I mean, it's like you never learn anything from a good show because it's just you're in sync. You have that moment, but it's that moment. It's only as real as that moment. You can't take it with you, and a lot of times you can't replicate it. But like the bad shows, you can think, all right, what did I do wrong? You can listen. I would always tape every show. I would at least audio tape every show, and you can listen. You can go, all right, I think I screwed this joke up in the beginning, and if you mess up the beginning, sometimes it's harder to get them back, and especially in like a hard situation. It was like this really long room, and they just weren't with me, and it was just like. Thankfully, like as the years went by, those type of things became less and less. But it's the bad ones that it's like when you're a comedian and like you're standing there and you could have 300 people in a room and everyone's freaking laughing their asses off. If there's one guy in the front row with a face, looking at you like he has no idea. And you don't know. Maybe he doesn't even understand English. I've got no idea. I don't know who he is. He could be deaf, all I know. And somebody dragged him to the show, but he's not laughing. 300 people laughing their asses off. All you can think about is this one guy in the front row. Why doesn't he like me? Why doesn't he? You can become obsessed with it. It's just one of those things,
So what kind of advice would you have for aspiring comics? I mean, like you said, you can't really just go in there and expect every single show to be the same, like you said, because audiences are different, and you might be in a different frame of mind after a long trip or something like that. What would you tell anyone who wants to get into comedy?
The thing with comedy is there's no shortcuts. So nobody steps on stage and is amazing, right? I mean, you can have an affinity towards it and you can have a talent, but there's nothing that replaces 100 shows behind you, 1,000 shows behind you. It's getting on stage. It's having those circumstances. It's having the waitress drop the tray. It's having the drunk guy come at you. It's every one of those things that builds who you are and builds your defense for the next time. So, and also I remember like when I first started, if I was doing a joke and someone coughed, I'd have to go to the next joke. Like I couldn't now, like I could do a joke and somebody could distract me. I could go on an entire tangent and then just come back to that joke. You know what I mean? But a lot of times also new folks think, oh, I have to do brand new material every time. Don't do the old. And it's like, no, you have to, when every famous comedian that put out their first album, they probably did that for 10 years. That same thing for 10 years. They didn't write 10 new minutes every week and only do those 10 minutes. The only way to get good is to do it 1,000 times. And you can reinvent it and you evolve it. And so you have to keep working on the material. And you also have to not be afraid to get rid of stuff that doesn't work. A lot of comedians hear laughs that aren't there. So you got to really learn to be honest with yourself. And if something's not working, no matter how much you love it or you think it's, whatever, if it's not funny and it's not working, it's either just maybe you have to rewrite it and, or you have to get rid of it, So that's the way it is. That's why I always would audio record every show. And like, you can listen to a joke. And if, sometimes you can remove stuff to get to the next beat faster. You have to be willing to always edit. You have to always be willing to edit. I remember there was this one concept I was working on once and I just couldn't get it. And I knew it was funny, but I couldn't get it. And the interesting thing about comedy is like one word can either make or break a joke. I mean, it's literally, as you're doing it. And one of the reasons I always record is I just kind of through a free thought, whatever. It just kind of came out one night. I said it how I wanted to say it, meaning it just flowed out of me. and it nailed it. I nailed it. And so, and I had it on tape. And so I used that tape to be able to imitate myself doing that. Because here's the thing, when you're on stage and you do something in the moment, or somebody says something and you react to it, your memory of how that actually happened isn't accurate. It's not accurate. So when you try to do it by memory the next time and it doesn't work, it's because there was some nuance that you just don't remember. But if you have it on tape, then you can figure out the entire sequence of events, and you can learn. You can teach yourself to imitate the moment that you had where you were just letting it go and doing it, and then you imitate yourself doing it, and then you can go from there. So I've done that. I've done that many times. I think it's a as a comedian, it's an extremely useful tool, especially since the nuances are so important with everything that you do.
Do you have a favorite joke or bit that you do in your act that you've done in your act? I know that's kind of hard because you probably write so many jokes and it's like trying to pick your favorite kid.
I do. I have a joke where it's kind of like a Make-A-Wish joke, which I don't really want to do, but I'm most proud of it because I get it across, and everyone laughs, and I actually just sit and take in the laughs, and I'm like, you don't even realize what you're laughing at. Like I hit you so hard you didn't realize, but you already let it out. You know what I mean? And so it was like I took pride in that. I took pride because it's not an edgy Make-A-Wish joke, it's like or anything like that. It's just it's based on a real experience, something that really happened. But like when they laugh, it's in such a way that it just works. You know what I mean? And so that's a moment in my act that I always sit back and go, I'm loving this moment. I'm loving this moment because you should not be laughing at that. But everyone laughs. When it doesn't count, it's usually because everyone laughs. If only a third of the people laugh or 25% of the people laugh, then you didn't pull that off. Getting that those are the people that are going to laugh at the inappropriate stuff anyway. But when you can get the majority of those people, then you got something.
And by the way, if anybody wants to see some of your old performances, it's on your website, jeffisfunny.com, right?
Yes, I don't really keep that updated too much, but yeah, or you can go to YouTube and you can Google Jeff Dwoskin. There's some stuff. I realized I'm like, oh my God, I haven't really put anything out there in like a long time, but there's some good samplings out there just, to give a thing. It's like, with comedy, it's like, how often you put out the stuff and then it's like, you want to hear it for the first time. Yeah. So I always struggled with that. And plus I hate hearing myself, That's why I recorded 2 albums and never did anything with them. So when I did say, because it never sounded right enough to me. You know what I mean? It's like when you record, when you're there and enjoying it, it sounds like something. And then the audio recordings never sound like you when you were there. And so I was never happy with it. So one day when I pass, there'll be 2 never before heard albums from Jeff Dwoskin.
You got them all lined up already.
Yeah.
As long as the material too isn't too dated, it's not like someone's going to click on the website and hear you going like, well, "What's the deal with parachute pants?" Or
no, I never did that stuff. It's all just family stuff. So
okay, so let's talk a little bit about your podcast.
I would love to talk about my podcast, Jim.
Okay, so you've been doing it since May.
I started in May, but Jim, and this is important.
Okay.
I bought all the equipment in 2017. So my intention was to do it in 2017. Okay. So I bought it all. I had the mixer and everything. I had the laptop. I had my headphones. I had everything. I got cords, all that kind of stuff. And so I bought it all. I recorded a professional intro and an outro and some bumpers. I knew I was learning the lingo. I got lingo down, so all that kind of cool stuff. But originally my podcast was going to be focused on social media. And so it was going to be all about, like you mentioned earlier, like I'm on Twitter and I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and I've been very fortunate that I had a lot of my tweets. If you go to Jeff is Funny, that is one interesting thing that's been in almost every major publication there is, or read on Good Morning America, stuff like that. So I wanted to do a podcast and sort of help people do that. And so it was really clever. It was called Viral Intentions. So it was a little play on the movie Cruel Intentions, right? But then also viral intentions, because everyone who does something on social media wants to go viral. So now it's mid-March, and I'm thinking, I want to do my podcast. I get everything out, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I don't know if I could launch a podcast right now called Viral Intentions.
Yeah, that could be a little tricky.
Yeah. So, my brother, also my buddy, he said, just call it the Jeff Dwoskin Show. Then you can do whatever you want. You got all these different things. Whatever you're interested in, you can do. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So I got everything out of the box. A friend of mine helped me put the cords back in. That took an extra month because I didn't know where the cords went and away from the coming from Chicago. So that delayed me a bit, but he helped me out, my friend Nate Armbruster. And so then I get going, and then someone had told me to be on Apple podcast. You needed 3 episodes, but I recorded 3 and I released 3 out of the gate. Kind of like an intro episode, which is really just me. And then I started to do interviews. I'm like, interviews might be a good way for me not to have to come up with 20 minutes of material by myself every week. Sounds like a great idea when you're, get them, let's do a podcast. But, long term, maybe not the best strategy. So I got friends who, I build apps. I built an app called #Roundup, which is kind of a Twitter hashtag app, to help things go viral and stuff, and fun Twitter games. If anyone wants to check that out, #Roundup. Anyway, and then I talked to friends of mine that have built apps. So I talked to CEOs of social media stuff. I've talked to brand managers from Reddit, and I've talked to Pinterest experts. I've talked to celebrities like Larry Hankin, Mr. Heckles from Friends, and Bruce Valanche, who was on Hollywood Squares, and Jackie the Joke Man Marling. And then I'll talk to comedians. I had Craig Shoemaker. I've interviewed Bobby Collins. He'll be on an upcoming episode, or maybe a past episode, depending on when this airs. Anyway, but, so it's sort of like a combination of those kind of things. So, just acting and all that. So it kind of touches on the 3 pillars of my interests, entertainment, social media, and comedy.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of social media, you've got a huge following on Twitter, as we said earlier. How exactly do you build that up? That's a really interesting thing that I'm sure a lot of people wonder about. They say, well, I tweet regularly, but it's just not getting the kind of attention. But I know you've got a couple of thousand followers.
44,000.
Yeah, a little more than a couple of thousand.
More than
Tens
a couple, Jim.
legions.
Don't embarrass the pride of Michigan with a couple thousand, please, Jim. I got a reputation to protect. The Fonz is watching me right now. It's about putting out good content and sharing other people's content. It's sort of like just a combination. A lot of people, you'll see their page, unless they're famous, people know who they are. But if you're not famous, which is probably me and the rest of us, then you have to, one way to get noticed is to share other people's stuff. And there's communities, so the #Roundup that I mentioned is a community that I help foster, and I'm a strong leader in. And so it's, you get to know a lot of people, and we tweet together, and it's all about kind of just, creating some connections also. If you just go and tweet something and you've never kind of interacted with anyone, good chance nothing's going to happen with that. So it's a time thing. You got to put the time in, just like stand-up comedy. You got to put the time in. You got to build relationships, and because it's all about getting people to share your content. And if you can get people to share your content, more people see the content. We do a lot of stuff with hashtags, because with hashtags you get a certain amplification that you don't get from having a small follower count. It sort of overrides that. So that's one benefit to it. You can have a nothing account. Sometimes you'll see, like when some political tags go, like an account with like 50 followers could have 10,000 retweets, because they hit into that. That's how that happens. So those are kind of the things. And this is all available in my book. No, I don't have a book, but I should write a book. You can pay me X amount a month and I'll share all my secrets. We should do that.
Those ads are always on social media, Jeff. You could clean up with that.
I could clean up.
I can show you how to get 3 million followers on Twitter.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to it. You know what I mean? You do everything you want. TikTok's interesting. There's this guy who just does words. Like he does English language, and he's got like a massive following, but he does it in kind of an entertaining way. So it's about having a little bit of a niche too. And it's also about not thinking your stuff is the greatest stuff in the world. A lot of times people go negative right away. They go, why aren't people retweeting me? I am brilliant. Maybe you're not brilliant. So it's like, that kind of thing. So if no one's, coming near you, then maybe you just need to rethink. This is who I am. Okay, well, maybe who you are is someone who doesn't get retweeted. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Sure. Okay, so since this is a podcast about podcasts, I was wondering what are some of the podcasts that you like to listen to?
That is a great question, and I have 3 that I would love to recommend.
Okay.
All right. So is that too many?
No, that's perfect.
I listened to, who helped me a lot, Think Business with John Dwoskin. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's my brother. That's more of a business-oriented thing. And he's done an amazing job building up his podcast. So that's a business one. From a comedy point of view, the Sal and Bob Show. It's Sal D'Amelio and Bob Phillips. And they do like this, they go to steakhouses and they have guests and they just talk about stuff. So they're 2 really, really funny people. So that's the Sal and Bob Show. And then the final one, which I think is pretty awesome, is called Coffee with Kenobi. And the host of that is a guy named Dan Zare. Dan Zare is a teacher, but his thing is he teaches through the philosophy of Star Wars. Like he's a real teacher, not like come to my seminar, a real teacher. And so he does tons of stuff. And he's like one of the premier Star Wars experts. Like he knows everything. And so I've had him on my show a couple of times too. He's a brilliant guy. We met when we both went to London together on some social media influencer thing. And I was a social media influencer, Jim, for like 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, people were interested in me like 4 years ago, and then it dried up. But one of the things was I got to do this Star Wars thing. And so I met him, and so that was cool. So those Coffee with Kenobi, as in Ben Kenobi, the Al and Bob Show, and Think Business with John Dwoskin. I recommend those highly, audience. Oh, and a 4th one, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. Who saw that coming? Hey.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because it is time for the portion of the show we like to call shameless self-promotion. So this is where you can let everybody know where they can reach you.
Shameless self-promotion.
Okay. So podcast, easiest way, JeffDwoskinshow.com. Dwoskin is DWOSKIN. For those of you who don't know how to spell Dwoskin. So JeffDwoskinshow.com. Twitter @JeffDwoskinshow. My personal Twitter, which I've been raving about with the 44,000, is Big Macher. Macher, that's even harder than Dwoskin. BIGMACHER, Big Macher. It's Yiddish. It means big shot. It was a nickname in high school. So anyway, but those 2 things, Instagram, don't worry about it. And if you follow me on Twitter, and then you're probably good. And then check that out. It's an Apple podcast. I'm on Good Pods. I'm on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, anywhere Jim's podcast is, I'm there too. So
we follow each other around.
Yeah, we just found. So anywhere you can stream a podcast,
Okay.
the Jeff Dwoskin Show is waiting for you. We're waiting for you.
Well, there you have it. I think if that's not enough enticement to listen, Rebels, I don't know what is. His name is Jeff Dwoskin, the pride of Michigan. He has been my guest. And thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
And now it's time for Sherpa Suggestions.
Okay, for this week's Sherpa Suggestions, I came across an article on a site called thegamer.com, and the title of the article was The 10 Best Comedy Podcasts of All Time. So I figured I'd read them off to you. Some of them have been mentioned previously on the show, and some of them we haven't, so I like it when we can mix it up a little bit for you. You know, my two personal favorite comedy ones are Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend and the Ron Burgundy Podcast, but here's a couple more that maybe we've talked about and maybe we haven't. We have Anna Faris is Unqualified. Did you know she left the show, Mom? Oh, no. Let's see how we can put this one. Guys, we F ***** D. You can do the math on that one. There's Yo, Is This Racist? How Did This Get Made, which is a comedy movie podcast. My Favorite Murder, which is a comedy true crime podcast. We also have The Dollop. My Brother and Me. I believe that's one of Nick from Just Now Science's favorites. My Dad Wrote a Porno. Two Dope Queens, and of course, Comedy Bang Bang. So those should put a little smile on your face, especially after hearing some of my bad jokes during this show. Very special thanks to Mr. Jeff Dwoskin for coming on down to the Sherpa Chalet via Zoom, of course. And be safe out there, Rebels. And be sure to check out his podcast. And be sure to check out this podcast. And you can follow us on social media. Sherpalution is the word that you need for Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And if you don't like podcast apps, dare to think, I don't know what I'm talking about. You can listen, see, there was that wheeze again. You can listen to this show on my website, Sherpalution.com, and I would just ask you to do me one little tiny favor. If you could go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or iHeartRadio and leave a nice review, so lots and lots of people will check the show out and maybe get involved with the Sherpalution as well. Feel free to message me on social media or email me at jimthepodcastsherpa.com. If it's a nice email, I will actually read it on the show. I am ahead of schedule, so it may take a little time till we get to it, but I will get to it. Okay? Well, I will see you guys tomorrow, and we will be speaking with a comedy writer named Howie Fox. See you then. Mr. Bruce, don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. They've been awfully good to you.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Sherpalution. Viva la Sherpalution. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?